phonicslearning.com. This is an example of lesson 4 of our first grade phonics program. At the beginning of each lesson in the program, just like in kindergarten and in second grade, you'll find a handwriting strip at the top of the paper. This handwriting strip is not just there to help the kids with their handwriting when they're writing the letters. It's also there for us to do what we call our touch and say, which is where you go through and the kids practice putting their finger on a letter and saying the name of each letter aloud. So they would read A, B, C, D, and so on. The reason we do this is because a lot of times kids are real good at learning the alphabet song because it's easy to remember and it's catchy, but they don't really understand what they're saying. They don't understand the letters that they're saying and what the letter looks like that they're talking about. So the more you can practice that each day, the better their understanding will be. After you do the touch and say, we have the review section, which is where you will say a sound and the kids have to write the letter that makes the sound. The best way to do this section is if you say the sound, they repeat the sound back to you, and then together you say the letter that makes the sound, and then you write the letter on the line. When you do this, you got to be very careful to say the short, crisp sound instead of adding the sound to the end of it, which a lot of us in the South like to do, and especially in Texas. So you've got to be very careful to say the short, crisp sound and not add the to the end of it. So we wouldn't say puh for this, we would say p for this. Or we here for the D, we wouldn't say duh, we would say duh. So make sure you're saying that short, crisp sound. So you would go through each of these. For example, on the very first one, I would say the p sound, and then I would point to the kids and have them repeat it back to me. And then together we would say the letter that makes the sound, and then we would write the letter down. So, for example, it would go like this. P. Then they would say p. Together we would say P and write the letter P. Give them a second to write it, and then go on to the next one. D. D. And then we say the letter D aloud and then write the letter D down. And that's what you would do for each one. On the listen and spell section, this is where the kids are really practicing those listening skills, where they have to listen carefully to the words that you're saying, listen for those sounds, and be able to spell the words correctly just based on the sounds that they hear. So, for example, the very first one here is the word nap. When you read it, you want to make sure you're really enunciating those sounds so that they can hear each one. So I would say nap, and then I would go through each of the individual sounds. So I would say nap, n, a, p, nap, and then they would have to spell the word. And you can go through it a few times to give them time. And as they do it, they'll get better as they go. On the code and read section is where you're practicing adding those breves and macrons to your short and long vowel sounds, and then eventually you will add in boxing of the suffixes and boxing of the prefixes, and then syllables and accents and things like that. In the beginning, we start easy. We're just doing breves and macrons. In the what comes first section, in this lesson, you're studying initial sounds, so that's why the what come first section is here, but there will sometimes be middle sounds or ending sounds or segmenting phonemes and things like that. Here, you would read the name of each picture. They have to write the letter that makes the sound that they hear at the beginning of the word. So, for example, peacock, they have to hear the p sound at the beginning of peacock and know that the letter P writes that word, and they would write it here. In the beginning, you may want to kind of do this together, but as you go, you want the kids to be able to do it more, and so you wouldn't want to tell them the answer each time you did it. But in the beginning, while you're really learning the program and while the kids are learning the program too, you may want to go through it with them. Here we have our handwriting practice on the second page. Every day there will be handwriting practice. And the good thing about this part is they're not just practicing writing, they're also practicing writing one of their spelling words. So anytime they have one of these words in the shape here, it will be one of their spelling words, so they're getting some practice in for that too. It'll have it with the arrows, which shows them the direction to go, with the dash lines, and then they'll have a line where they have to write it 1 or 2 times on their own. Again, this lesson was practicing initial sounds, so we have the what comes first section again. You would read the name of the picture. They have to listen for that first sound and write the letter again. So like piano and pop, they're listening for that p sound and writing the letter P that goes with it. In this lesson, we have a word ladder, which is where they start at the bottom of the ladder. It gives them the word here, and it has a clue, and they have to use that clue to form a new word. So they're usually either going to be changing the beginning or the ending sound, and then eventually when they do them, they'll be changing the middle sounds too. So for example, it starts with fat. It tells you this blows air to cool you down, change the last letter. They would change the T to an N and make it fan. And then it says jog quickly, change the first letter, they change fan to ran, and so on. So it's just good practice for them with those onsets and rhymes. And then lastly, there will always be a high frequency word box. These high frequency words are practiced each day, and then they're also assessed on their phonics assessment, and they'll be included in their spelling assessment also. So it's also always good to go through these high frequency words with them. There are flashcards included with the lesson also that they can use to practice on their own or with a friend too. Anytime you're going through these daily lessons, if you have any questions, always feel free to email me. My email is heather@watsonworksedu.com, and I will make sure to respond to you just as quickly as I can.